Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Likon Obanjo. Here are stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in Europe, where NATO allies on Wednesday announced that they have begun transferring F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, a long-awaited step to bolster Kyiv's defenses against Russia. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said at the NATO 75th anniversary summit in Washington that Denmark and the Netherlands have started transferring the planes, with Belgium and Norway committing to providing further aircraft. Ukraine has long desired advanced Western aircraft, and President Joe Biden last August approved the transfer of American-made F-16s to the country. He said those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer to make sure that Ukraine can continue to effectively defend itself against the Russian aggression. Blinken said the transfer of the jets should be a signal to Russian President Vladimir Putin and the quickest way to get a peace to be signed, and of course to see that Ukraine is in a strong position.
F-16s are on their way. The transfer is happening as we speak. They'll be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer. That's another very important proof point, because again, it concentrates Vladimir Putin's mind on the fact that he will not outlast Ukraine, he will not outlast us, and if he persists, the damage that will continue to be done to Russia and its interests will only deepen. The fastest way, the quickest way to get to peace is...
For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua Hagan, it's nice to have you around. Now, it's the first day of the NATO summit. What do we need to know about the deliberations so far?
Well, in addition to those fighter jets that you had that will be on their way to the Ukraine this summer, the US and other countries are also providing Ukraine with dozens of short and medium range missiles, medium range systems to help Kyiv intercept Russian drones and missiles. This is Canada, Norway, Spain, the UK, and other countries, and they're going to play an integral role in providing these systems to Ukraine, along with many others. Now, Vladimir Zelensky has said he would fight for decisive actions from the United States and Europe to help the Ukraine. And he went on to say that it's not only our country that needs it, everyone needs it. It's literally every partner, all nations. So he's asking for more defense systems, those F-16 fighter jets like you had there as well, and additional security guarantees, which would be weapons, financial and political support. So yesterday, when President Biden made that speech to open the NATO summit, he said that NATO was united as it's ever been, and went ahead to lay out NATO's defense plans to ensure that allies are prepared to defer threats and defer every inch of the NATO territory. And that includes support for the Ukraine, also includes strengthening global partnerships, cyber defense, and strengthened resilience.
Now, the summit is set to be a make or break for President Joe Biden. So how is it performing on this high-pressure world stage?
Well, absolutely make or break Joe Biden. I mean, because of that disastrous debate that he had with Donald Trump, the CNN debate, which took place at the end of June, he is facing pressure to step down as the Democratic candidate ahead of the election. Now, at this point of the NATO summit, his remarks are scripted. He read from a teleprompter yesterday and today, and he has done well. He got through the speech without any major hiccups, although it seems like he accidentally read some stage instructions from his prepared remarks when he was giving a medal to someone, which was a slight faux pas, but not the worst thing in the world. He does have that speech which he's going to make, a press conference which he's going to do on Thursday, and that is going to be completely unscripted and off the cuff. That's when the pressure is really on. But today we've heard from Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker at the House of Representatives, and she said that Joe Biden should get through the NATO summit first and then decide if he's going to step down as Democratic candidate or continue. George Clooney, the American actor, also wrote an op-ed today where he said he supports President Joe Biden, but he thinks for the good of the Democratic Party, he should step down as the candidate.
Okay, yeah. So talking about the calls for Biden to step down, how do you think the world leaders at the summit are looking at this? Do you think they are concerned? And also for Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, do you think he's also worried that this coming election in November in the U.S. might swing to the other side and probably jeopardize its efforts to remain formidable while it tries to protect its interest or its sovereignty against Russia?
Well, NATO leaders have always been apprehensive about a second Trump presidency, what that will mean for NATO, and of course, what that will mean for Ukraine. But now they have the additional anxiety of worrying about Joe Biden and worrying if he's fit to carry on as the president, and whether he can run and whether he can win. And they also feel that maybe they cannot trust the United States, that if they have Trump as a leader, that will be bad for NATO. But if you have another leader in President Joe Biden who's acting Trump-like in that he won't step down and he doesn't seem to be listening to the calls, most of which are coming from inside the House, to step down, then that is problematic. And if NATO leaders and other world leaders feel that they cannot trust the United States and they don't have confidence in Joe Biden to bring the election home, then yes, that is problematic.
Okay, Afua Hagan, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. Let's move on now. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced a major package of air defenses for Ukraine, including an additional Patriot system, as NATO leaders gather in Washington for a summit. The move aims to show U.S. commitment to Ukraine's defense against Russia. Despite the show of unity, doubts surround Biden's political future after a debate performance sparked concerns about his fitness to govern. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg urged countries to maintain support for Ukraine, warning that a Russian win would be a greatest risk for NATO. Meanwhile, Donald Trump claimed credit for making NATO viable again and called on European countries to contribute more to Ukraine's defense. In the meantime, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has set about resetting Britain's relations with key allies as NATO plans to adopt its original proposal to make Ukraine's pathway into NATO irreversible. The new Prime Minister, who arrived in Washington on a mission with support for his plan to protect Ukraine's entry process into the NATO alliance from any potential interference from a Trump presidency, and one of his first meetings at NATO was with President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is also in the U.S. Capitol to discuss Russia's war against his country. Speaking at the NATO summit in Washington, Starmer told newsmen that as far as UK is concerned, the change of government makes no difference to the support it will provide.
A very good meeting with President Zelensky, where I made it absolutely clear that as far as the UK is concerned, the change of government makes no difference to the support that we will provide. We've been united on this when we were in opposition, and it was really important to me to be able to affirm that face-to-face in the meeting. I did speak to him immediately after I was sworn in as Prime Minister last week, because it is an opportunity for our Labour government to reaffirm our commitment to NATO. We obviously signed the original treaty way back. We reaffirmed today, but also to discuss with President Zelensky what further support that he needs, and to use our opportunity here with our allies to make sure that that support is agreed, and to reinforce, in a sense, as a message to Putin, the resolve of NATO, bigger now than it's...
In a related development, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said at a summit in Washington that he believes the United States will remain a cornerstone of the alliance whoever wins November's presidential election. Also at a summit in Washington, NATO chief Stoltenberg said there were no current military threats that any NATO ally faces, but expressed concerns that there is always a risk of cyber attacks, sabotage, and other unfriendly acts against NATO members. But since Russia is also focused on the conflict in Ukraine, so far there are not many military assaults.
We need consensus, and all allies agree that Ukraine will become a member, but it's too early to say exactly when that will happen. What I can say is that we are moving together with Ukraine closer and closer to NATO membership. I expect that allies will agree a strong message on membership for Ukraine. The exact language I will refrain to comment on until we have the statement agreed. It's negotiated as we speak. So we don't see any imminent military threat against any NATO ally. What we see is, of course, a constant threat of cyber attacks, of sabotage, of different types of hostile actions against NATO allies, but short of military attacks, because Russia is so preoccupied with the war in Ukraine.
Let's also tell you that Russian strikes have killed 3 people in southern Ukraine, including at the Black Sea port of Odessa. Authorities confirmed on Wednesday that Russia has carried out nightly attacks on cities across Ukraine since launching its invasion in February 2022. Governor Oleg Kipa said the aggressor targeted port infrastructure in the Odessa region. Unfortunately, 2 people were killed, a security guard and a truck driver. It was unclear whether the deaths were caused by direct hits or falling debris from destroyed missiles. The Southern Defense Forces said Russia launched a ballistic missile and 4 guided missiles at the southern port. Beyond the continents, we'll be back in a short while. We observe this break now. Thanks for staying with us. We stay in Europe to tell you that following the death of a BBC radio racing commentator's wife and 2 girls on Wednesday in what is alleged to have been a targeted incident, UK police are looking for a suspect who may be carrying a crossbow. The 26-year-old Kyle Clifford from Enfield in North London is wanted in connection with the deaths of the 3 women in the town of Bushey, north of London, on Tuesday night. The victims were Carol Hunt, the 61-year-old wife of BBC Radio and Sky Sports racing commentator John Hunt, and their 2 daughters, Louise and Hannah. Local police said officers were called to a house in the leafy commuter town where the 3 women were pronounced dead at the scene.
Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used.
In U.S., former U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday delivered a speech in Florida where he criticized President Joe Biden. Trump accused Biden of being corrupt, incompetent, and cognitively impaired, and made other claims about the president's abilities and behavior. Trump also accused Democrats of covering up for Biden's alleged shortcomings. The speech was Trump's first public appearance since some Democrats began calling for Biden to end his re-election bid after a debate performance that was widely panned.
Where's Felix? My lawyer. They want Crooked Joe out of the race. It's a shame the way they're treating him. But don't feel sorry for him. But they're lying in the entire world of Joe Biden's condition. I mean, you see his condition. You see them frantically trying to overturn the results of 50 state primaries and install a new candidate at the behest of their very rich donors. Florida is going to defeat the radical left Democrat hoaxers and liars, and the election day, we are going to tell Crooked Joe Biden, Joe, you've done a horrible job. You're fired. Get out, Joe. You're fired.
Wow, quite fiery. The first Democratic senator has publicly questioned President Joe Biden's electoral prospects after 7 congressmen broke cover and asked the 81-year-old to step down. Questions have been raised about Biden's fitness for office after a stumbling presidential debate performance against Trump late last month. However, on the same day, House Democrats Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey publicly called on Biden not to run for re-election, claiming that the stakes were too high. She joined other dissenting voices in Congress, including Adam Smith, who stated that the party needed to install a stronger messenger as its candidate. As the debate lingers and the White House faces questions about its approach to disclosing information about Biden's health, speculation continues to grow over who would replace Biden if he chooses to step down. Let's now take you to the Middle East, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says that the Israeli army had eliminated or wounded 60% of Hamas fighters after 9 months of war in the Gaza Strip, describing it as a military success. Gallant adds that there have been many successes from the rostrum of the Knesset, the Israeli legislature, as the conflict between Israel and Hamas, now in its 10th month, which continues to rage in Gaza.
חיילי צה"ל נלחמים מזה 9 חודשים, מבצעים את עבודתם במסירות, בהקרבה ובהצלחה, וההישגים הם רבים. חיסלנו או פצענו 60% ממחבלי החמאס, פירקנו את 24 גדודים או את רובם המכריע, השבנו מחצית מהחטופים ואנחנו נחושים להשיב את השאר. ואנחנו כולנו, מערכת הביטחון ואני בראשה, נחושים להשיג את מטרות המלחמה ולהשלים אותם.
In the meantime, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry reported on Tuesday that an Israeli strike hit near the gate of Al-Wada school in Abbasan al-Kabira, east of Khan Yunis. The attack caused significant destruction and resulted in the deaths of women and children, according to witnesses. Hospital officials confirmed that at least 29 Palestinians were killed and dozens were wounded in the airstrike on a tent camp for displaced people outside the school. The Israeli military stated that it had used precision munition to target a terrorist from Hamas's military wing involved in the October 7 attack on Israel. Let's also tell you that a court in the United Arab Emirates on Wednesday sentenced 43 Emiratis to life imprisonment for having links to a terrorist organization. The mass trial, which included critics of the government and human rights activists, has faced heavy criticism from UN experts and rights groups. A total of 84 defendants appeared before the Abu Dhabi Federal Court of Appeal, many of whom have been imprisoned since a previous trial of 94 people in 2013. In Asia, foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan will meet in Washington on Wednesday for a fresh round of U.S.-mediated talks. Yerevan and Washington announced this as the arch-foe neighbors negotiate a peace agreement. The Caucasus rivals fought 2 wars in the 1990s and in 2020 over control of Azerbaijan's breakaway Nagorno-Karabakh region, which had been predominantly populated by ethnic Armenians. Last season, Baku recaptured the mountainous enclave in a one-day offensive that led to the exodus of its entire Armenian population, more than 100,000 people. However, despite years of internationally mediated peace negotiations between Baku and Yerevan ending in failure, the presidents of both countries recently declared that a complete peace agreement is achievable.
Over the last year and a half, Armenia and Azerbaijan have done very important work toward negotiating and concluding a peace agreement. One that is durable, one that is dignified, and one that would open extraordinary possibilities for both countries, for the region that they share, and for their relationship with the United States. Throughout this process, the United States has sought to be helpful and supportive, along with the European Union and many colleagues in Europe. Today's an opportunity to take stock of the progress that's been made, what remains. I believe both countries are very close to being able to reach a final agreement, one that the United States would strongly support. So I'm very appreciative of today to, again, take stock of where we are and to see what more the United States can do to be helpful in helping you reach an agreement.
Finally, on the news, a fire has destroyed dozens of stores inside one of Islamabad's largest markets. No casualties have been reported. The massive fire erupted at Islamabad's Sunday Bazaar on Wednesday, engulfing over 300 stalls, with police saying an investigation into the cause of the fire is underway. The incident occurred at the capital's I-9 open-air market, where vendors set up stalls each week to sell a wide variety of goods. Media reports firefighters battled for several hours to bring the blaze under control.
छोटे भाई इस तरफ आ जाओ तुम आप ये काइंडली इसमें मेंशन करें एक दफ़ा नहीं हुआ दो दफ़ा नहीं हुआ ये हर बार ही हो रहा है और बुध वाले दिन ही आग लग रही है इस बाजार के अंदर और उसकी वजह ये है कि बुध वाले दिन यहाँ पे कोई नहीं होता
12 दिन के बाजार होता है तो यही हम अपने बीवी बच्चों के लिए जो भी अपनी फैमिली के लिए यहीं से कमाते थे और यहीं से ताज़ा जो भी कमाते थे वो खाते थे ये कुछ 6-7 बार हो गई ये आग लग रही है मतलब बार बार एक तरफ मतलब आज तक ये आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हो सका इंतज़ामिया से कि आग क्यों लगती है और इसके बारे में यही है कि आग लगाई जाती है और ज़्यादातर ये बुध वाले दिन जहाँ पे यहाँ पे इंतज़ामिया होती है और इंतज़ामिया के अंडर होती है क्योंकि उस दिन बाजार वाले भी यहाँ पे नहीं.
That's all at this hour. Don't forget to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on the screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Liko Onabanjo.